Welcome back to Hustle to Holdings, where we explore how people turn hustle into long-term ownership. Today's guest has a journey many people will immediately connect with. Carmelo started his career as a school teacher, focused on education, stability, and impact, and over time made the transition into real estate entrepreneurship. Today, he owns his own brokerage and holds multiple rental properties across Florida and New Jersey. His story is about transferable skills, long-term vision, and building something bigger than a job. Carmelo, welcome to Hustle to Holdings.
Hey, how are you guys? Working hard?
Yes, like always. I mean, it's
Yeah.
2026, it's the beginning of the year, so we're already seeing what we have for our portfolio. But your
Yeah.
story very, very much intrigued me because I know,
Mhm.
we met sharing a couple of deals as well. And you just casually mentioned, like, oh, yeah, I was a school teacher as
Mhm.
we're analyzing deals. And I would really wanted to tap into the story of how school teacher brought you into an entrepreneur because I know you mentioned you owned your brokerages and you have a couple of different companies. So tell
Yep.
me about, how you were a school teacher, what it taught
Mhm.
you, and then how it transitioned into real estate.
Yeah, actually, teaching actually worked really well to transition to real estate because you learn structure, right? So you got to do lesson plans for the students. You got to plan your day. You got to plan your week. You got to plan the curriculum. And actually, that kind of transition trends to real estate because it's the same thing. You're planning and you're analyzing. So working as a school teacher kind of helped me out with a lot of planning and organizing real estate deals. So I actually was working in Jersey City, New Jersey. And I don't know if anyone knows where Jersey City, New Jersey is, but that's literally right over the bridge from New York City. And in 2001, Goldman Sachs came into Jersey City after the 9/11 attacks, and they started their corporate headquarters in downtown Jersey City, New Jersey. And they started investing in Jersey City. And I was buying properties really cheap back then. It was like $75,000 for 3 families, $125,000 for 6 families. And I just started buying rental properties while I was teaching in Jersey City. I went to college in Jersey City. I started teaching in Jersey City, New Jersey, so I'm very familiar with the area, and I started buying properties, and it kind of took off from there. So actually, over the years, the properties obviously increased in value. We pulled out the equity on those deals and reinvested in other deals. And Jersey City is literally one train stop away from New York City. So I had a friend of mine. He actually worked for the light rail station, which is he was one of the train conductors, and he gave me the map of where these trains are going to be built. And I just followed along those maps, and I was like, all right, I'm going to buy here, I'm going to buy here. Then Newark, New Jersey, which is 2 train stops over from New York City. I was like, I'm going to start buying there. And it worked out really well because they started developing where the train stations are and the train stops are. And we just kept investing, and lo and behold, we have just about under 500 apartments altogether in the portfolio right now. So,
Wow.
yep.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah.
How did you get into like learning about real estate, or like what enticed you to buy a bunch of properties from school teaching?
Well, you notice my family, I'm first generation Italian, and there was a lot of all my family. If you there, they came here. They bought 3 families. They bought 4 family properties. They lived in them. They still live in them today. So basically, they started investing a few properties, nothing crazy. A few here, a few there. And I was like, well, if they can do it and don't speak English, I can do it with a college degree. So I just basically mimicked what they did and just took it to another level. That's all. And I remember my dad was here 50 something years, and he never even spoke English. So I was the eldest. So I would be negotiating with mortgage brokers on the interest rates. I'd be signing leases. I'd be working with Section 8 of housing to, house the tenants. So at a young age, I already was exposed to managing real estate because I had no other choice.
Yeah, you have no choice, especially when you have like immigrant parents. I can relate to that because
Yeah,
I'm also the eldest daughter.
uh,
So everything I was fighting with, I don't know, the bank, for instance, anyone that I needed to fight, and they're like yelling at you in
yeah,
Italian or
exactly.
in Spanish. They're like, "Tell him
Yeah,
this," and you're like crying. You're like, "My dad says this. You don't know this." So,
exactly. I'm like 12 years old, sitting at the head of the table was back then it was Washington Mutual Bank. I don't think they're even around anymore. You know, so it's crazy. And then
well,
refinances. So yeah, I learned a lot, doing it that way. So
that's amazing. What part of Italy?
Calabria, southern Italy.
Okay,
It's
I haven't
right
been
at the
there.
boot of Italy, boot where Sicily is. Yeah.
Where's
Hmm.
Sicily? Okay, I've been to Sicily. Sicily is beautiful,
Yeah, I love
beautiful.
it down there. Yeah, I was there
Um,
2 summers ago. We spent the summer in Italy. It was
I
nice.
could s- I could stay in Italy. The food there is the best. Like
It's
The
funny because
best.
exactly. It's funny because I was like, oh, I remember when I was younger, all these wealthy people go overseas on vacation for the summer. Then I realized why, because it's much cheaper to live there for the summer than it is to stay here for the summer. You know, I'm spending maybe like a $2,000 a month to live in southern Italy, then $15,000 to spend the summer here. You know,
That's very true. So
you know.
tell me, so your parents already came in here buying real estate? That is awesome. That's
Yeah, they
very
lived in a
badass.
three-family house. They lived in it. My mother still lives there. So when they bought it, Bergen County, New Jersey for $75,000. Then they bought the house next door. So they bought that and rented that out. And they wanted to buy more properties, but then it's literally I lived like the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, and after I read that book at 19 years old, and it's like my mom's side of the family is very school oriented, get an education and do this and do that, get an education. My dad's side of the family all dropped out in fourth grade and owned businesses. So I had the best of both worlds, I guess. I got my master's, well, almost my master's degree. I dropped out my last 3 credits, and I was like, I'm just doing real estate full time, and so I understand the street hustle, I understand the school hustle, and it worked out well. So, and then
It
my
did.
mom was like, I don't want to buy any more real estate. She's old and worrisome, and this and that. My dad's like, I want to buy more. So it was always a friction that I remember in the house about buying more real estate and buying more real estate and stuff like that. So I was like, I'm gonna do it. Forget it.
Those family dinners must have been so fun.
Oh, it was a mess. Yeah.
And how did your mom feel like when you told her, "I'm not gonna be a school teacher anymore. Like, I'm not gonna have the stability."
Yeah,
Did sh
I was, I was at that point, I was collecting more in cash flow than my teaching salary. I was
Okay.
working as a real estate agent and I was closing deals. So I was like, you know what? I was making a month what I was making all year, sometimes. So I'm like, I'm not going back into teaching. That's not for me. So, and then when I got my broker's license, I was just closing deals and deals. I was close. I'm in, northern New Jersey. The average commission check back then was $7,000, and I closed 5 to 6 deals a month. So I was making
Wow.
$40,000 a month, and I'm like, I'll just save it, buy another house, save it, buy another house, save it, buy another house, and it just worked out well that way. So then we just started, we went from the smaller deals, and then now the last few years we've been scaling to larger assets, 60 units, 100 units, 200 units.
Commercials.
Yeah, the full
Nice.
commercial residential stuff. Yeah. So
That's amazing. So tell me the difference, because I'm also shifting into more on the commercial side is what I'm looking to. Hotels and apartment buildings. I really like the hotel model
yeah.
because it's like having short-term rentals under one roof.
hmm
But tell me about that. How was that transition?
It was actually funny because I had one of my friends reached out to me. He's like, hey, listen, I have a buddy of mine. He wants to get into real estate investing. He's done a few flips. I have my contractor's license. He's like, he just wants to borrow your contractor's license so he can do the work. I was like, all right, you trust this guy. Let me use my contractor's license. And I oversee the project. And then he was like, oh, you should do Airbnb. We do Airbnbs. I was like, all right, let me look into this. So we set up some of our properties that we own near international airports into Airbnbs. So I had a tenant in Newark, New Jersey. Newark, New Jersey is known as the carjacking capital of the world. If you've heard about it, it's gotten a lot better. So I was like, this tenant left. She was paying $1,800 with 6 bedrooms. I was like, let's put it on Airbnb and see what happens. And the property brings in probably $3,000 to $4,000 a month, if not more, just renting out the rooms as a hostel. I was like, great, let's try with another one. And we ended up going down to the Jersey Shore. We bought some 6 families, some 4 family properties down there. We put them on Airbnb. They're doing really well. So we transitioned into converting some of our assets into Airbnb. So right now we have 67 doors on Airbnb.
Nice.
Um, and then, then we bought a mobile home park in Evansville, Indiana. So I was like, all right, let's get into this. One of my other business partners, he's like, let's go do one of these boot camps for mobile home parks. I was like, all right, let's try it out, see what happens. So we did that boot camp, and we came across a park in Evansville, Indiana. It was mismanaged, and their current owners that had it at the time was 2 young investors, 2 brothers. I guess they didn't, I guess they used to single family home investments in that market. They never did a larger scale asset like this.
Mhm.
And they owed 400. We were buying it for $450,000. So I was like, listen, we called every bank. The property's in distress. It's literally 50% vacant. We can't get a loan on this property. Can I speak to your bank? Because they had a loan on the property. It was a local bank. So I called the bank. The bank president answers the phone. Because you go into these small communities in the Midwest, You have small little local banks for the most part. You don't see too many Wells Fargo, Bank of Americas out there. A lot
Hmm.
of credit unions. So I called the bank and I was like, listen, my name is blah, blah, blah. I'm looking to buy this mobile home park. And unfortunately, no one's giving us funding because it's 50% vacant and you guys funded these current guys. He's like, thank God you called. I was like, okay. He's like, these guys haven't paid me in 6 months. We assumed the loan and I negotiated better terms. I got lower interest rate, better terms than they had originally. And we assumed the loan. We stabilized it further. We didn't fill the whole park up. We stabilized it further. We did what we had to do. And now we have it under contract for $1.5 million. We're selling it 5 years later for $1 million more than we paid for it. So we
Wow.
literally assumed a loan. We brought $25,000 to the closing table. So I bought this place for $25,000 out of my pocket. We took the rents through the years, we put it back into the park, and now we're selling it for $1 million more than we paid for it. So, and I was like, okay, I like this deal. Let's get into another one. And we bought another 88 unit in Illinois 3 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago. So we did like a small syndication. I'm not you familiar how those work.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did a small syndication. Me and my two partners, we put in $1 million. We need to raise 1.4. We put $1 million of it just to try the process of a syndication. We bought that for 3.2 million. And while we're under contract, one of the buildings caught fire. It's 11 buildings, eight units each, so 88 units. And then we had to retrade the deal and renegotiate the contract with the sellers, sorry. So we ended up getting it for $2.8 million. Then
Uh,
we went in and rebuilt the building, you know?
Tell me about syndications for those that might not know what it is
Mhm.
actually.
Basic syndication is it's just basic paperwork that you file with the Securities and Exchange Commission because you're bringing in investor money. So these
Hmm.
people are investing into your deal. I'm the general partner. So basically, I'm overseeing the operations, acquisition, the management of the asset, and they're going to get a return on their investment. So like I said, we had to raise 1.3, $1.4 million. And the majority of it was our money, me, my brother, and another partner of mine. And then we had some friends and family come up with the other 350, $400,000,
That's
50,000.
506B or 506C, the
This one
friends
was a
and family.
506C, I believe. I don't recall. I gotta look at the
Okay.
paperwork.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so we did that. And then, the property's doing well. I think we just we finalized our numbers yesterday. In this past 18 months, we paid out almost $400,000 in NOI to our investors on an 88 unit building.
Wow.
So,
That's
and we
amazing.
bought that property. They were averaging about $650 per unit in rent. And we got it up to almost seven and change, almost just under $800. And I'm filling some units right now at $1,000, $1,100 Section 8. So in the next few years, we'll have even higher NOI.
Yeah, especially with Section 8, I'm seeing the actually market rents of Section 8 being higher than the market rents. At least here in Florida,
Yep.
I'm definitely
Mhm.
seeing that. So Section 8
Yeah.
is a great strategy for apartment
Mhm.
buildings.
Yeah, I would say, if it's Section 8, if the government needs to go out of business, and then I go out of business. So until the government goes
Yeah.
out of business, I'll be in this.
Are most of your properties under Section 8 or no?
No, they're not low income housing tax credit properties, but we do
Mhm.
try to accept a lot of Section 8 tenants if we can.
Okay, okay, okay.
It's guaranteed money and they have
It
contract.
is.
Unfortunately, a lot of people, see it like, oh, these people are, they leave it a mess or they destroy the apartment. Yeah, I got tenants who are on Section 8 who eat off the floor, and I got tenants who pay out of pocket who would live like pigs.
Yep,
So it really doesn't make a difference, really. And the Section 8 HOP contract, if anybody ever read it, it's a contract between the landlord, the government, and the tenant has to abide to those rules and regulations. I've had tenants that owe me, $200-300, and they got kicked off Section 8. So that's like giving up a win for life ticket.
they
You know?
do. They do give up. They do kick you out if Section
Yeah.
8 if you don't treat the property
And
right. That's very
if you
true.
use it against them, the tenant's like, "Oh, hold on a second, I'm not gonna lose my free rent. I'm gonna pay this guy," And then so it actually works out to our benefit. And I've had tenants who didn't listen, and they're like, they lost it, and then they're homeless. That's their problem at that point. So
No, it's
you know,
it's true. I mean, it's a contract between everyone, and some
hmm
tenants can treat it bad, some tenants treat it good. I've had a tenant who would pay out of pocket who got arrested by the FBI in my property. I had the SWAT team come in, and he was not Section 8, and then I
yeah,
replaced it with a Section 8
uh,
um
less headaches.
tenant. And she's great. She has a
Yeah,
little pit bull, and my life is much easier now.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sounds like fun. We have some fun stories. Like I bet I could tell a lot of fun stories. You know?
Yep, yep. As a landlord, you definitely have those great stories. Not fun in the
Yeah.
moment, but after you're like, oh,
Afterwards, yeah. I was like, all right, yeah,
that was kind of funny.
it was great.
If it didn't happen to me, tell me about mobile home parks. So you
Yeah.
were just curious about investing in a mobile home park? Like what got
Yeah, we're
you?
just curious to see how it works. And I was like, all right, let's take a look at it. So basically, the way it works in mobile home parks, we own the land
Okay.
and people can bring in their home and live there and pay us lot rent and they can finance their own home or whatever the case may be. So what the way we've done is we took some of the homes that were there, we renovated them, and then we sell them to the prospective buyer. So we'll take like a $3,000 or $4,000 deposit, then we do owner financing, and they own the home or the deed. No, they're not the deed. I
Hmm.
guess it's a title because it's a car, right?
It's a car.
Yeah. Um, so they own it at that point. So they pay the payment every month for the lot rent, which is our rent for the lot, and then
Hmm.
we finance the deals to them, and we collect the mortgage on the mobile home also. Or you can
Oh,
or you can just basically say, okay, move in your own home. You have your own house. You can move here, and you just pay us
and
the
this
lot
is
rent.
your rent.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other option is we act as landlords. We own the home, and we own the land. So we just make we say, okay, 3 bedroom is $1,100, and you pay us that every single month. You know. And that's for obviously we
Oh.
collect that perpetuity. If they own the home,
Hmm.
it's like a 5 year or 7 year financing agreement, and then thereafter they don't have to pay us anymore. So it varies on how we structure it and on how they want to move into the mobile home park. Me, I believe 2 years ago, HUD approved mobile homes for Section 8. So
Okay.
then we started bringing in Section 8 tenants. And we're getting like $1,100 per unit. I'm like, this is great because our cost was, $30,000, $20,000 for these things, and we're paying $1,100 per unit. So it worked out really well. So I wanted to just continue filling up the park. I was like, let's just put in more money into this place. My partner's like, no, I don't want to do this. I was like, all right, then let's just sell it, and we'll just part ways at this point. You know, so but
So what grew you exponentially? Because again, you were just buying properties, single family homes or multifamilies, very small ones. Well, how did you grow your business so fast? Like now you have a
it's been
large
25 years,
brokerage.
not that fast.
All right, I need
Yeah.
still it seems like man, what did you do?
Just curiosity and learning new, different strategies and new markets to get into. Everyone always says, "Oh, buy in your backyard, buy in your backyard," and that's great. Don't get me wrong, but it got to the point where in New Jersey it doesn't make sense anymore. You're buying these, people buying. I've got 4 families in Newark, New Jersey. I owe like $200,000 on them. They're selling for $800,000, $900,000 right now, and I'm like, how do you make cash flow? It doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. So I was like, let's just expand into different markets, and going out of state, it's a little bit, I wouldn't say difficult because my thing is my forte is logistics. So for me, it's very easy to go in there, build a team, and get out and let them operate. And actually, that's a key strategy is probably if you want to grow your business is you got to give up control, right? You have to stop micromanaging and build the teams and let them hold them accountable for what they're doing out there. So like in Illinois, you have a great maintenance guy on site. He pretty much shows the apartments. He maintains the apartments. He gets paid really well. He reports back to us. Um, so really, if you asked that question, how do you grow? Is don't micromanage. My job is to find the deals, analyze the deals, make them operate, and that's about it at that point. But we have a great team, so that we have our own property management. We use Appfolio. I own a construction company, so I'm very familiar with the process of construction and costs of
Amazing.
renovations. So I guess knowing all those little things helps you grow. So, and when you go
And
out of state, I advise, if you are listening, do not buy, don't go out of state to buy a 3 family property. It's going to be very hard to manage a 3 family property from a distance. If you are going to do a 3 family property, a 4 family property, I would probably stick to doing Airbnb. If you're buying, in St. Louis or you're buying in Washington, D.C. or these tourist areas, Florida, because if you're doing Airbnbs, they're easier to manage from a distance also if it's a small asset like that, because people always in and out, your cleaning crews in and out, your maintenance guys in and out. So you can get, a real pulse of what's happening on a weekly basis in that apartment. Where, if you have 100 unit, I'm sorry, you have like a 4 family residential property and it's 4 rental units, the tenant's not going to call you to see what's happening. And then the next thing you had a leak for 7 months to find out you got mold everywhere. You know,
Yep.
with Airbnb, somebody stays for a week. Your cleaning lady goes in, goes, oh, all right, there's a little leak here, whatever the case may be. You'll find out within a few minutes. Where a tenant, might report it to you like 2 years later. So
Yeah.
if you're
That's
doing
very
out of
true.
state, I don't recommend doing smaller assets out of state. It's gonna be very hard to manage.
That's actually very good advice. Why did you choose Florida for out of state?
Well, all in Florida, all I have is I'm looking now. I have one condo in Florida that I bought a few years ago. I do Airbnb with that one. I'm looking to buy more assets in Florida. So that's when I reached out to. I don't know if you reached out to me or I reached out to you. I forgot how we met. Um, so now we're looking to buy some more assets because I know the market in Florida is turning right now. Depends on where market you're in. So I think some deals are going to be had. Deals to be had soon. That's for sure.
When did you start investing in Florida?
I bought that condo like 3, 4. I bought that. The thing's like 3 years ago. So
Nice,
it
in
was
Hollywood,
actually, I was
right?
like, you know what? I want to get something done. It's the Beach Walk Resort in Hallandale Beach.
Hallandale, okay.
Yep. So we
Uh,
bought that 3, 4 years ago. I bought it sight unseen. Um, it was a unit, it was a penthouse unit in that building. I was like, oh, what? I want to get it. That the guy with the penthouse backed out of the deal on me. So this one came available. And I saw online, it had like horrible reviews on Airbnb, and I'm like, all right, something's wrong with this thing. I guess the seller lived in South Africa. He didn't even live, a lot of in this building, I go to find out they don't live in the United States. It's a lot of international owners. So he lived in South Africa. The agent just sent me a video of the unit, and it was the lowest price unit. I negotiated a little bit further down on the sale price. So I got it for $439,000, and it's a block to the beach. And then we just went in and renovated it, and we just put on Airbnb. So when I don't use it, I put on Airbnb. It pays my mortgage for the most of my mortgage, and then I'll come down, a few times a year. And it's cold in New Jersey, and it's 28 degrees here today. I feel like flying down right now. Um,
yes, come to
but
40
yeah, I just have it
degrees.
just to use as a come to 40 degrees. Not that enticing, I guess. So now I'm looking in more different markets there to like more multifamilies,
Yeah,
hotels if possible, and stuff like that. So I think it's a great market to be in, especially now that the prices are going to be coming down. That's for sure. And I think it's going to be it's going to be further distressed. I know, like in Tampa, I know an agent out in Tampa, and she posted we had 1,500 open houses in one weekend. I was like, that's crazy.
yeah.
1,583 open houses in one weekend in Tampa. It's going to turn into a buyer's market.
Which is great because I'm looking to buy more too. So I need it
Yeah,
to be a buyer's
exactly. Yeah.
market. I loved it when it was a buyer's.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
hated the cash offers compared to like when I was making offers. So some people would just offer
Mhm.
cash and these deals would go by fast. So that's the one thing that I hated when it came to
Yeah.
Florida.
Yeah. Well, everybody puts a cash offer in, and then they swap it up for a hard money loan. And if you have a relationship with hard money lenders,
Oh,
I've used the same guys for years. And, I tell them on a Monday, I need to borrow, $500,000 by next Friday. They'll be like, okay, you're approved. Let's give us the deal. We know, you know what you're doing. So they'll do their appraisal, and then they close. So really when they say cash offers, it's not really cash. It's usually they're backed up by hard money. Yeah.
I love that hack. I love that hack. Okay, so then in what situation should I use a hard money lender? Because I know their interest rates are higher, but
Yeah.
it depends on the strategy.
Yeah, it does. It depends. You really have to know your market. You really have to know your carrying costs. You need to analyze your construction costs, your acquisition costs, right? So let's say, for example, you're buying a house, you have to pay your closing costs when you purchase the property, correct? Then you
Yeah.
have to analyze how long is it going to take me to rehab this deal. So you need experience with renovations. Um, so you need to know that much. So you got to calculate the carrying costs. How much is it going to cost me for construction? You can say it's going to cost you $100,000. I've been doing this 25 years. Nothing ever falls within budget, right? Even after 25 years, it still doesn't fall within budget. So anticipate, overages there. Then you have your resale closing costs, your commissions, your attorney fees, and all that stuff. So, you really need to me, my rule of thumb is I need to buy that property 50% ARV. So if the property sells for $900,000, I need to be in it. I need to acquire for like $450,000 to $500,000. That gives me enough wiggle room to, carry all those costs and then make at least a profit, you know? So,
That's great advice. The one thing
yeah.
about Florida is the seller's mentality, I think, because they are selling for way too high. They think we're still in COVID pricing. Like the
Yeah.
deal that we were looking at that's worth
Yeah.
really the ARV value was 2.1 million and it was
Yeah.
selling for 4.5 million. Like
Yeah. They're out of
how
their mind.
how did
Yeah.
you get that number? But just because they're right, the excuse is, oh, because we're in Florida, but it's not that
Yeah.
way. Like, and it's not
Yeah.
how it was before. So it's standing there just not being sold for months just because of
Yeah.
that. So I'm just
Exactly.
hoping that sellers can, understand like the market is not what it used to be
Hmm.
and to lower their prices because that has been the biggest struggle with negotiations in the Florida market. You just have
Yeah,
to
exactly.
negotiate.
Yeah, I saw that deal and I'm like, I don't know how they came up with this number. I was like, not even the cash flow, you know,
No,
justify
no.
the number. I'm like, yeah,
Even
yeah,
the
I'm
after
gonna lose
repair
hundreds of
value
thousands of
is
dollars. Yeah.
less is half. No, 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 no. So that
Hmm.
but that's
Yeah.
that's the Florida market for you. So you really just have to play the patient game, which
Yeah.
is what I wanted to ask you about. Like what are your hacks for
Mhm.
being patient when it comes to not these deals, tenants on top of that because you have multiple tenants as well. Like
Mhm.
what's your key to
Yeah.
patience?
What I've been doing is basically, the last few years after COVID, I was just really focusing on the deals that I currently own and raising the rents, managing the properties, making them more efficient. You know, that's what I've been doing patiently and just waiting for the market to turn because it always turns. Everyone says, "Oh, it happened in '07, it happened during the tech boom, it happened in the '80s." So it's always a buyer's market. So I always say, if you're an investor, you sell in a seller's market, you buy in a buyer's market. It's not rocket science, right?
Yeah.
um, so you just wait and see what happens because you don't want to buy at the wrong time because so many people bought at the peak of the market in '07 and '06 and '05. And guess what? '08, '09, they're back to flipping burgers, right? So you were better off waiting 2, 3 years and buy at the bottom. So like anything in business, you buy low, you sell high. It's not that hard.
One
You
of
don't need a
the
master's degree to figure that out.
Yeah, one of the guests that I had that was on this podcast, he bought in right before '08, like '07, a condo
Yeah.
for 130. Then it in '08,
Hmm.
it went down to 16,000 and now it's worth 600,000. He held it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
He held
Good.
it
See?
and now it's
Yeah.
600,000.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So if you're gonna plan on holding it, you can hold it, But you know what happens? A lot of people, it's psychological. It's like, oh, my property is worth $200,000 less. I'm not gonna make any money. They dump it. They'll walk. I've did that. I remember people walked away from their properties during the '07, and we were doing short sales. We were buying properties on short sales like crazy, from like '08 to like 2016. You know, so yeah, they'll do that when it turns into a buyer's market. That's where you're gonna make most of your money. You're buying at the bottom, and then you're holding on to those properties. You know, so he
Well,
lucked out. He did really well.
he
That
did.
guy.
And he's still not, well,
Yeah.
he's going to sell it soon, but
Mhm.
he just
Yeah.
hasn't sold it. So that's you have to play the patient game in real estate. Now, you do
Exactly.
developments as well, right? Not only buy and hold, but also developments because of your construction company?
Yeah. So we just buy distressed assets. So right now we're
Okay.
negotiating a 200 unit in Memphis, Tennessee. So the current owner bought it probably like 7, 8 years ago, for I believe $6 million. He put about $2 million into the place. I don't think he put $2 million into the place, to tell you the truth. He just cashed out the $2 million. So he currently has like $8 million loan on it, a Fannie and Freddie loan. So he wants to sell it. So right now it's sitting at 28% vacancy, 200 units. So he's got about 50 units vacant. But even with the 50 units vacant, he's cash flowing, because he bought it for cheap. He has a
That's good.
3%, 3.5% mortgage on it. So he's cash flowing. So he's like, all right, he listed it with the broker, and they're asking $14 million. I'm like, okay, well, $14 million, even at $14 million, tell you the truth, it cash flows. But I was like, I'm not going to offer $14 million. So I offered 10.9 just for shits and giggles. And he actually said, okay. And he countered me. I was like, oh, wow. All right. Let's see where this goes. So he came back at 12 million, $2 million less than he was asking. I was like, all right, you guys seems pretty serious about selling. So we're just going back and forth on those negotiations. And we underwrote the deal. And even we purchased it at, I believe we did 12.5 was the max, which I'm not going to go to 12.5 anyway. It still cash flows with the 20%, 28% vacancy. So year one, we're still making
Nice.
money. So it's only huge value add thereafter, you know? So,
That's a great
and
deal.
on our analysis, we came back was year 10, the property would be worth with increases and bill backs and all that stuff would be about $24 million. So we're literally going
Wow.
to double the value of that property in 10 years.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Are you
Yeah.
going to do a syndication on this one?
Maybe a small syndication. We need
Okay.
about $4 million to close. We'll probably
Okay.
put in between $1 million and $2 million because we have some buildings that are pretty much paid off. So we're going to do lines of credit or refinance those assets to put down on this property. So we might do a small syndication, or we might do what's called an equity and debt stack. So we'll bring in like a family office, and they'll be like, okay, well, listen, you put in the 2 million or the 1 million, we'll put in $3 million. We want, it's like a hard money, right? They want 12% return on their $3 million. We want a monthly coupon at 6% of the
Mm,
12%. And then at the end, you pay us the remaining balance. So they kind of float the interest to the end, you know? And it might
mm.
give you like a 24, 36-month exit on something like that. So it's a little bit different debt structure. But basically, a syndication means I'm bringing in multiple investors, right? 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. With a debt equity stack, it's basically a family fund, and they're going to come in as the investors.
Okay. Okay. And then
Yeah.
you say the capital stack is different, which is I guess a preferable capital stack. Do they do waterfalls or no? I mean the family offices?
No, they don't do the waterfalls. They basically just say,
Okay.
okay, listen, your raise is $4 million. You need $4 million to close. You're going to put in $1.5 million of your own funds, and we're going to put the difference in. And we want
Mm,
12% return on our funds. So they'll be like, all right, so you give us 6% every single month on the $3 million, right? And
mm-hmm.
then the remaining 6% is when you cash out refinance at the end.
Got
So
it.
you
Okay.
have to underwrite the deal to make sure you're going to pay these guys back, right? So
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
want to have enough equity in that deal. You want to have enough cash flow in that deal to cover their nut, because it'll be expensive, right? If your NOI is strong, I advise you could do it's much easier to do a debt equity stack rather than you raising capital here or there, whatever the case may be, you know?
How do you balance it all?
Teams, we have the right team. We have an underwriter. We have, my assistants, the property managers. Really, it's like hierarchy, right? So I'm at the top, and everyone else is told what to do, what has to be done, and they report back to me. It's really like anything else, right? So you just gotta, as long as you got the right teams in place, right partners. We have some partner issues. That helps. That doesn't help actually. You know,
And how do you find the right people? Like that's a struggle in itself.
that's a learning curve every single year. Right? So you'll have some people that are great, and then some people you learn like, okay, maybe these guys weren't all the best partners or the right people to put in the right place. So it really boils down to references, knowing to get to know the people
Mm,
on a personal level.
right.
So there's some changes coming also on our end. We got to change some people out also. But it's a learning curve, really. That's what it really boils down to.
So, what advice do you have for someone? I would say, like, right, like me, right, in the journey that has done single families and all of that stuff, but looking to get into the commercial sector of real
Mhm.
estate investing and to grow, to be honestly like you.
Yeah. You want you just find people that can mentor you and bring you on board to some of their deals, or you can help people raise capital for their deals and get like a GP percentage, so you learn as you go along. Um, but honestly, if the deal is a great deal, the money finds the deal, right? That's what it boils down to. So because and if you find a stellar deal and it's 30 and 40% returns or whatever the case may be, people want to invest in that deal. But more importantly is the operations, right? Who's operating the deal? Like for example, even with the deal we're underwriting now, the 200 units, I never owned a high rise. These are two high rise buildings, right? So the family office is like, well, you have experience in doing high rises? I was like, no, I've most of my stuff is 3, 4 stories and the garden style apartments. But at the end of the day, it's just basic operations. Everyone's got heat, they got water, there's mold issues or renovations or whatever. It's the same process, really. So it's like, well, what's your game plan? I was like, well, we're going to go through the building, find out which units need the least amount of work, get those up and running, and then which units need the second amount of most of work, get those up and running, and then that way the cash flow starts building up. You know, so it really just boils down to operations, logistics, and a business plan.
Business plan. That's amazing advice. This is just like it's crazy how the growth is. Because I feel like it feels so slow when you're
Yeah,
in it, when the growth is, and then you look back and you're like, wait, but I've accomplished all of this. So,
yes,
and it's good that you diversified as well, because I know a lot of investors who, for example, they just stick to apartment buildings and that's what they know and that's what they stay in. But I like that you diversified
yeah,
into mobile home parts, now hotels, so you can see which one makes the most
hmm,
money so far. So
yeah.
far, which has been making the most money? Airbnb, like in to terms of cash
On a
flow.
smaller scale, like if you want to have small operations, the Airbnb does really well compared to just doing yearly rentals on 4 or 5 units. So if you have like a 4 or 5 unit building, you can probably
Mm,
make more cash flow having an Airbnb model in there. So what I advise is, say for example, you have a 4 unit building. I would probably put 2 units year round. That's going to cover
mm,
your debt service, right? And the two Airbnb units could be completely profit. So that might be a way to, you know, mm, increase your NOI, trying to mix up a building, doing it that way. And again, with the Airbnb, you got to make sure that you're in the zone for Airbnb, right? I was looking at a deal in Treasure Island. It was on I believe it's the West Coast, on the other side where Mexico is, of the West Coast of Florida. And it was all set up it was a 12 units, great deal. And it was all set up for Airbnb. And the guy raised capital from investors, bought the asset, got up and running, only to find out that it's not in the proper zone, and the city shut it down. And then what happened was all the investors lost their money, right? Because now the property is not worth what he analyzed it as. And literally, it was a block away from the Airbnb zone. So literally, like across behind the property, the house behind it was Airbnb zone. His fell in the residential zone. So he didn't do his due diligence, and then he found out the hard way, and the investors found out the hard way. And I think when I was looking at the deal, um, someone was telling me, I forgot who it was. I think I was calling the tax office, I was calling the zoning officer, and
mhm.
that general partner was getting sued from all the investors because obviously he was misled. Yeah.
The fact that Airbnb has a lot of restrictions is one of the reasons that I decided, instead of doing short-term rentals,
Mhm,
hotel investing, because especially boutique hotels, because it's off. I've been seeing a lot of people use that strategy and it's helped them exponentially.
mhm.
And it'll just be easier for you. It's really making a hotel experience into
Yeah.
an Airbnb experience, which is why I've leaned into it and studied about it,
Yeah.
because I don't want to deal with that. I've had friends with Airbnbs and out of
Mhm.
nowhere, like condos, and out of nowhere, the HOA just decides to not have Airbnbs in place anymore. And then if you do, there's like $10,000 fee. Like
Yeah.
she got a $10,000 fee for operating her Airbnb when it wasn't supposed to, even though HOA
Really.
out of nowhere told them you can't
Wow.
operate
That's crazy.
Airbnb. So those are one of the risks that I'm trying to mitigate. Um,
Yeah.
one of the things that I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you was, what's one lesson that you wish you learned sooner
Mhm.
in your journey?
I probably would have
Okay,
bought the larger assets
that's a
sooner.
good tip.
Yeah. Yeah. I probably, instead of buying 3 families, 4 families for like 10 years, 11 years, I would have start investing in 100, 200 unit buildings much sooner. They're easier to finance. Yeah. Easier to finance. The banks, like those deals better. And again, if you buy 200 units and you raise the rent $30, that's already $6,000 a month, $80,000 a year to your NOI, and increases the property value, exponentially.
It's true, and if there are vacancies, you're not like stressing about it, with when you have less units, one vacancy affects your portfolio
Yeah.
and your cash flow exponentially. When you buy more units, it's like, okay, there are vacancies, but it's at least still paying for the debt of the asset. What habits helped you build momentum?
Habits. All I do is work. So People ask me what my hobby is. I work. What do you do for fun? I work. I don't know. It's
Maybe
just
your
me.
organization.
Um, really, just again, yeah, like I think the systems is probably the most important, you know. Once we switched over to our systems with Appfolio, it made our accounting easier. It made our
Nice.
work orders easier. It made it easier for the track the tenants and collections. Um, and again, I think, like I said before, was micromanaging, right? So bring in an assistant to help you do the petty stuff. I brought an assistant in like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, to do all the 10-day, notices and the legal, deal with the attorneys and file the evictions with the attorneys. Do the rental increases, send out the late
Yeah.
notices, little stuff like that, gave me more time to do what I need to do, what I can focus on, and finding the larger deals and analyzing deals and stuff like that.
Amazing.
So I would say, try to get rid of the petty stuff and hand that off to somebody else. And my assistant works out of the Philippines.
Beautiful.
I pay her $600 a month, and she does everything for me from here, from United States. She has access to everything, and she does everything great.
That's
I can't
amazing.
complain.
Yeah, yeah, and you don't have to pay that much for an assistant. It's not like, I mean, it's her full-time job, but it's not a full-time
Yeah,
employee in a way. In the US, executive assistants, they get paid over 100 grand
yeah,
in just in salary.
yeah. Yeah, sometimes I was like, "Oh, what's your Wise account?" And I sounded like $100. She's like, "Thank you. Well, great." It's like $1 million over there,
So I'm
So
so curious to know, what did you teach? Real estate? Like math?
I taught gym and health. Yeah,
Oh my,
gym and health.
well, at
Yeah,
least you know how to be healthy.
yeah. I was a gym
Oh,
teacher.
that's awesome. Okay. Do you know your favorite book? Do you have a favorite book that you recommend to the audience?
I've read one book my entire life, cover to cover, two books. One was Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was about it.
And then, do you have a morning routine?
No, no, just get up and start working. Everyone's like, "Oh, I get up in the morning and I meditate and I drink a bottle of water and I put lemon in it." I'm like, "No, just get up and work. That's it. That's what I got to do."
And any last minute advice for anyone in their hustle to holdings journey?
Um, you know what? My Italian family came here with $30 in their pocket, and then when you tell them to do something, they're like, "It's impossible." I was like, "Well, if you came here with $30 in your pocket, it was possible. So don't listen to the naysayers." You know. So you wanna you wanna do buildings, mimic somebody who does invest in buildings. You wanna own barbershops, mimic someone who owns barbershops. So learn from the people that are doing what
Love
you
it.
want to do. That's it. And that's not rocket science.
Where can people learn more about you?
Well, I do an online class, REI for Dummies. So it's REI, the number four, dummies.com. So it's an online course to teach real estate investing. I do it, I do it live maybe once a year, twice a year, but they can download the courses that I've done so far. Other than that, that's about it really. And they can Facebook, Instagram. On Instagram, it's Money Makes Money, REI. And on Facebook, it's just my name. Yeah.
And what does your course teach? Does it go into the fundamentals of like the different types of strategies? I'm actually very interested.
Yeah, we start off with marking analysis. So what's happening in the market, right? Because you don't want to get in at the peak of the market to find out, hey, 2 years from now it's going to crash or whatever the case may be, right? So we tell how to analyze deals, right? So most investors don't even know what an absorption rate is, right? So if you're investing, you're buying a property, say in Miami Gardens, what's the absorption rate for a 4 bedroom, 3 bath property? I bet you nobody has a clue what absorption rate means. I bet you ask the realtors and they have no clue what that means. So that basically means how long is a house sitting on the market that's comparable to yours, right? So it could be 3 months, it could be 6 months, it could be 9 months. If it's a 9 month absorption rate and you're buying this property, guess what? You need to
Yeah.
carry that property for 9, 10 months, right? So you got to put that into your underwriting, your analysis, because you're going to get buried. Um, so we teach about that. We teach about how to deal with
Nice.
contractors, right? A contractor, "Oh, I want 33% up front." Well, they never show up again. You just lost 33% of your budget. No, right? So we teach them, you put the contract, everything's done upon completion of. Upon completion of demolition, you get $3,000. Upon completion of framing, you get $10,000. Upon completion, because they don't show up. Once you give them a
Yep.
deposit, you're at their mercy, right? I'm like, oh, we'll be there Monday. Okay, which Monday? All right, 5 Mondays later. All right, another mortgage payment went by. So we teach about that. Um, how to save money, right? I remember I one was a local investor here. He's doing a lot. He owns a lot, quite a bit of apartments. He grew the past 10, 15 years. And probably like 10, 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago when he started, he's like, Mel, come look at this deal for me. He bought a 6 unit building, and I get there and he demoed the entire building inside. And I'm like, you are dumb. Okay. Because now you got to bring everything up to code. Now you got to put sprinkler systems in. You got to put a central alarm system in. You got to do all this insulation. I was like, living room, bedrooms, and dining rooms. All it is sheetrock and spackle. Why did you demo these? You could have just left it the way it was, spackle and paint. Demo the kitchens, demo the bathrooms. That's where your stack goes for the plumbing, back to back. You put new kitchens, new bathrooms in. That's it. Now you got to bring everything up to code. You got to spend an extra. I remember that deal took him like 5 years to finish, and he went way over budget. He eventually got it done, but it is what it is. And but the stuff like that, where it's like, why did you demo these rooms when all you had to do was spackle and paint? Why are you going to take down sheetrock or plaster to
Hmm.
put it back up? It doesn't make any sense, right? You got more demolition costs, you got more electrical costs, the insulation costs, labor costs, garbage costs. So we teach about stuff like that. How to find deals, right? How do you find the deals? Once they hit the MLS, they're garbage, right? It's already overpriced and it goes into bidding wars. So, how to build a sphere of contacts to
Hmm.
reach out to you, right? So they teach how to do that.
Those are really good
Little
though. Very
crazy
important.
little things I've done through the years. Yeah, those are, you save money or not got robbed, really. Because in this market, you'll get robbed real quick from contractors and hard money lenders. How much are they charging, right? Some guys are charging too much, right? Or too little, or whatever the case may be. Um, some people are like, oh, we only do 9 month loan terms. Like you can't buy,
Yep.
renovate, and sell a house in 9 months. So you need minimum 12 to 18 months. Is there an extension on that loan? Because you don't. What are they going to do? You might have a great deal, then they foreclose. Guess what? Now they're making all the profit. They took your money and they're making the profit. So you're definitely going to. There's a lot of nuances in this business that you need to understand before you get into it. You know.
I'll put that in the show notes for anyone who wants to visit the website and get to learn about the course. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Carmelo. It was amazing just having you. You brought so much important
Awesome.
information.
You're welcome.